Hello, I'm Peter Falk, and I'm hosting this program on cholesterol because about a year ago, I had a big surprise. More accurately, I'd call it a shock. I'm one of those people who was convinced that I had a terrific heart because whenever I'd go to the doctor and he put me on the treadmill, I'd do really well. And every time he'd take my blood pressure, it would be so low, he'd look at me like I was some kind of phenomenon. And because I'm an actor, I get a lot of health exams, one every time I start a new picture, and that can mean as many as 3, 4, 5 exams a year, and every time I would pass with flying colors, so I really felt that I was in great shape. And when my friends out at the golf course would tell me you ought to get my cholesterol checked, I thought it was kind of ridiculous. But my really closest friend out there, he's a fellow who went through a lot with his heart, and he finally got to me. I mean, he just kept after me, and I finally agreed to do it. And when my numbers came back, believe me, I was stunned. They were sky high, and I got scared. It really frightened me. I went to my doctor, and you can bet that whatever he told me, I took very seriously. I became even stricter about my diet, and I eventually got put on medication, which I now take regularly. So that's how I learned to take high cholesterol seriously. And this film is about doing just that. It's told entirely by people like you and me with first-hand experience. The story begins on an ordinary Sunday afternoon on the prairies of Texas.
This October day, hunting was the only thing on Pat Contestable's mind.
It started out to be a normal day. Walking along, I was a little short of breath. It didn't bother me at first too much.
I got a point.
The pain hit, the shortness of the breath. I knew that I had a problem. I didn't know what it was, but I knew something was wrong. But I didn't want to ruin the day.
Hey, you all right?
Yeah, go on, Rick. I'll catch up.
I was really scared at what was going on. And when I got back to the house, I told my wife, I said, there's something bad wrong with me. And that's basically what happened that day. And the next day I was in the hospital.
What his doctors discovered was serious. An X-ray like we see here revealed the major artery feeding blood to Pat's heart was 90% blocked. To reopen this artery, they began a procedure called a balloon angioplasty. They inserted a thin hollow catheter with a balloon at its tip. They carefully maneuvered it into the arteries of the heart and coaxed it into the critical area. Then they inflated the balloon, which created a wider opening in the clogged artery. Finally, blood started to flow again through the artery to the heart.
It's like a light switch, the difference in how I felt before, how I feel now. After the angioplastic, prior, I felt just like heck. Just very tired, listless, didn't want to do anything. And now, I'm just ready to go anywhere.
But success like this can lead to a false sense of security, says Dr. William Castelli, one of the nation's leading heart specialists.
An operation like the one Pat had can often make the patient feel better immediately. But I caution them. While they may feel better, the risk of having a heart attack has not really been removed. That's because what gets many heart patients in trouble in the first place, Pat included, is having too much cholesterol in their blood, a condition called hypercholesterolemia.
Cholesterol in the blood comes partly from the food you eat and partly from cholesterol produced in the liver. The liver makes packages of cholesterol and sends them out into the body where they're used to build cells. One such package, called LDL, travels through the bloodstream and is absorbed where it's needed. Excess LDL stays in the blood. The liver sends out a second cholesterol package called HDL, which mops up the leftover LDLs. If the body is overloaded with LDLs, they build up and harden in the artery walls. Over time, the arteries narrow and restrict blood flow. When that happens to the arteries of the heart itself, it can be serious.
Good health, happiness, and long life.
Salute.
Salute.
The operation has bought Pat some extra time, but unless he can lower the amount of cholesterol in his bloodstream, he may be back on the operating table. The first line of attack for Pat, and for the rest of us in the battle against cholesterol, is diet. New Orleans. People come here from all over the world to sample its distinctive cuisine. Here in the kitchen of the famous Bragston's restaurant, they prepare dishes that are rich, mouth-watering, and typical New Orleans fare. Food that's great for the palate, but not for everyone's heart. Chef Frank Bragston was raised on this high-fat, high-cholesterol diet.
The two most popular sauces in New Orleans is Meunier sauce and Hollandaise sauce, and both of them are extremely rich. There's a lot of butter, and you'll see these sauces served with fish, with meat, with lamb, with a variety of things.
Recently, Frank discovered his cholesterol level was too high.
My cholesterol is high because all my life I've never really gone on a diet per se or really taken a conscious effort to watch what I eat.
Part of what's gotten Frank into trouble is cholesterol found in foods such as eggs, meat, and dairy products like whole milk, cheese, and butter. Now he's trying to eat more non-cholesterol foods like these carrots and other vegetables, as well as fruit, rice, beans, and pasta, or foods low in cholesterol like fish, or chicken and turkey, without the skin.
It really has been a whole new outlook on food for me because I'm analyzing foods that I eat, I'm analyzing recipes that I use, and finding out about food has really been a surprise to me.
The biggest surprise was that some foods, like meat, are a problem not only because of their cholesterol content, but also because of their saturated fat. That's because saturated fats, like the butter used here, boost the cholesterol levels in the blood still higher. So now, whenever he can, Frank broils his low-fat fish in non-fat fish stock. And when he does saute or fry, he uses an unsaturated fat like olive oil.
Cutting back on saturated fats, as Frank did, is the first step in controlling your high cholesterol. But medical research shows that some people will still have too much cholesterol in their systems, regardless of how good they are about their diets. For these people, adding appropriate medication to the right diet can make a difference, as you'll see in Brad Kurtz's story.
Artery disease runs in Brad Kurtz's family. Years ago, during a routine physical, Brad discovered his own cholesterol was extremely high. He didn't worry much about it, although his wife and family did.
2 or 3 years ago, we were on a family vacation, and my brother-in-law, who happens to be a doctor, is very much into this kind of preventative medicine, got wind of the fact that I had a 380 cholesterol level and went berserk. And he got everybody else in the family berserk, and they all collectively explained to me that I was going to start worrying about it immediately. I think they gave me a 4 days grace period where I was allowed to eat anything I wanted to eat because it was the last time I was going to ever eat it.
When we got home, we threw out everything we had in the house that was bad and started very strictly for about 6 months where he didn't eat anything wrong.
I think I had red meat once a month. I don't think I had a single egg for 6 months. Dairy products were completely out. No more butter on potatoes. I think I had most of my baked potatoes dry, and it was hell. I had my cholesterol checked after 6 months of this, and my cholesterol went from 383 to 379. Didn't move an ounce. And it was pretty depressing to have not even made it move a little.
Just changing his diet didn't work because Brad's own body was either making too much cholesterol or not using it up. Brad's doctor recommended that he start taking medication. Medications work in different ways. One way is to slow down the production of cholesterol in the liver, forcing the liver to extract LDL cholesterol that is already present in the blood. Another way makes the liver convert excess cholesterol from the blood into useful acids that aid in digestion. Medication can also work in other ways. But even with medication, Brad learned that he needed to watch his diet. His body still couldn't handle foods high in saturated fat and cholesterol.
I stuck with the diet when I started the medication, and I got my cholesterol level way, way down. And then I started cheating a little bit, and then cheating a little bit more, and cheating a little bit more. And funny enough, while diet didn't lower the cholesterol level from a real high level, it did raise it from a real low level.
There's another important ingredient to maintaining a low level of cholesterol over a lifetime: regular exercise. Since her heart bypass 5 years ago, Eleanor Siegman and her husband Irv walked this stretch of California beach.
The best thing you can do is to be more aware of your own health and what you need to maintain it, which means watching your diet, taking your meds, and doing exercise. Exercise is pleasant now for me. I enjoy the walks. My husband walks with me sometimes, and we have nice places to walk, and it's become something I enjoy.
Exercise does more than just make you feel good. For some people, it changes the cholesterol balance in their favor by boosting the amount of good or HDL cholesterol in their systems. So it's a vital part of a heart-healthy regimen.
Changing your lifestyle, diet, exercise, medication, it's all easier said than done. That's something I can confirm from personal experience. But first you have to face up to the fact that you have a problem. For many people, that's not so easy. It wasn't for Eleanor Siegman or any of the other people that you're about to meet.
When I first realized I had a heart problem, and a serious one, I was shocked, and I didn't believe it. But then I thought, gee, you know, my father died of heart problems. My mother died of heart problems. What made me think I was immune? So it helped me accept a little, but it still was difficult to accept. It always is. Nobody wants, you deny it, you know, not me.
Did you get me Martin Michael?
Alan Pando denied it too. His doctor warned him for years about his high cholesterol. But running his advertising agency in Los Angeles was somehow more pressing.
The way I dealt with it really was by not dealing with it at all, because it was something that I had more important things in my day to worry about. I had high cholesterol, fine, so be it. It did not really affect me.
When we were going together before we were married, he said, I have to have a company physical. And they're going to check my cholesterol. And so what I do is, for a week before the physical, I watch my diet. I don't drink very much. And when I go in there, I can generally squeak by. And I thought that was foolish then, and I said so. But, you know, it was sort of laughed off because, you know, this is just what all us guys do.
When Stacy would bring up cholesterol or anything else that I do or don't do that doesn't make sense, there's always a certain amount of tension when you know that somebody probably is right. You just would want to get on with it and get away and forget about it.
It came to be that I felt that there was not a lot of benefit in continuing to bring it up, because when I did, there would be distress, and I didn't want him to keel right in the middle of one of our discussions about it. So I figured that he was an adult and he would have to deal with this on his own, and I hoped and kind of prayed sometimes that nothing bad would happen.
But it did. Soon after, Alan had sudden and severe chest pains. Days later, he had a double bypass. For Alan, it took surgery to hammer home the message that he had a serious health problem, one that could not be ignored.
Looking back on it, now that I know what I know, and know how much I ignored, yeah, I guess I was probably the portrait of a classic denier. What else we got?
As a senior executive, Alan wouldn't allow himself to think he was at risk because it wouldn't look good to his staff. so he ignored his doctor.
I think there is an awful lot of truth to not showing weakness in front of the people that you have to be tough with day in and day out. And frankly, I know how I have felt about other people who had either heart problems or cancer problems or whatever. And it's interesting, you really do think about them differently. So it's very normal to try to put it off and to deny it, because you're becoming vulnerable when you admit that you need help.
Daily temptations remind those of us with high cholesterol that we are vulnerable and need to take care of ourselves. Walter Stevenson of Boston is conscientious most of the time, with a little help from his wife, Lorraine. But he's human, too.
We went to Sears and Roebuck's. I wanted to look at shoes. And he said, I have something I want to look at, so I'll be back for you. Well, I looked at the shoes. I didn't find anything I wanted, and he didn't show up, and I went looking for him.
And I happened to wind up down in the section where they sell hot dogs, popcorn, and I just had the uncontrollable urge for something really strong, flavorful tasting. And those hot dogs, the smell of them on the little grill. So I thought I can have a fast hot dog and no one will ever know. I got all fixed up and I'm halfway through it. And I had a mouthful of hot dog and it tasted so good. Who comes round the corner but Lorraine? I thought, I can't swallow it. It won't disappear. I don't know what to do with it. I thought, well, here I am with hot dog.
He looked like the little boy who has his hand in the cookie jar when his mother comes along. And he got angry. I could see the anger in his face because he knew I caught him.
It's a hard thing to admit it. I think the hardest thing is to have to admit it to yourself, that you're actually instrumental in doing damage to yourself.
Most of the time, Walter is happy to accept his wife's help in sticking to his diet. But taking medication for him is a profoundly personal matter.
I think we've got enough, huh? Yeah. There is a stigma attached to taking pills, and I think many of us have that feeling about ourselves. It took a while before I realized that I have to take pills. I didn't like the idea, the thoughts of having to be relying upon medication every day was some of that stigma against, like having to have a drink every day. That's how I thought of it.
Sometimes I take this medication in front of other people, and I guess I'm a little self-conscious about it. They'll ask me, well, what's wrong with you? What are you taking that medication for? And then I have to explain to them about my cholesterol problem, and it forces me to accept the fact that there's something wrong with me and also realize that my body doesn't do what it's supposed to do.
Feelings of embarrassment or shame sometimes translate into forgetfulness.
Okay, that's it for me.
Alan Pando needs constant reminding about his pills from his wife.
Here you go. Funnily enough, I think he's somewhat denying that he takes medication, because if I don't give it to him, it's hard for him to remember to take it.
The funny thing about it is I don't remember to take my medication most of the time. Stacy hands it to me. And I don't know if it's because she started being so good about handing it to me or I just don't remember, but the fact is that when I travel, she usually has to call me up to ask me if I've taken my pill and then refuses to talk to me until I come back to the phone and said, yes, I took my pill.
Everyone has to find their own way to remember their medication. Walter Stevenson, for example, puts his morning and evening dosages into separate containers.
I found taking pills to be very difficult originally. I sometimes get halfway to work and remember that I hadn't taken my morning time pills. Or I get up next morning and remember I hadn't taken my nighttime pills. So I had to stop and think of a way that I couldn't miss them.
For Walter, that means putting them with his socks and underwear. For others, it's near the toothbrush. Some find a pill box useful.
It's a process you grow into. I've been taking this medication now for 3 years now. At first, I wasn't very good at it. Now I'm very good at it because I do it every day.
I had to accept the fact that I needed to have medication. I needed to watch my diet. I needed to exercise. And sometimes even the exercise didn't feel like getting up in the morning and running or walking. But you come to terms with it if you care about yourself.
But sometimes people get to the point where their regime works so well and they feel so good that they think they can cut back on their medication.
I sometimes feel tempted to stop my medication. I still have the tendency to that denial. And I've never actually stopped my medication, but the thought has gone through my head, I wonder what would happen if I skipped a few days.
I did cut back on the dosage at my own choice to see what would happen. And sure enough, that cholesterol level zipped up within a matter of months. And I went and had it checked, and I was surprised at how quickly and how much it went up. So I went right back on the medication and had it checked again. Funny enough, it was back to the normal level again. I won't run this test again because I now know the answer. I can't cut back.
I think a very positive attitude doesn't come easily and it doesn't come quickly. It takes time. I think that most of the time I can do what I know I have to do. I think that's become easier because of the results of my last cholesterol test. I know that if I do everything exactly right, if I take my medication and stay with my diet, I know now, I have proof positive that not only does it work, but it works fantastic.
It can work fantastic for a lot of us, but it can be tough to stick with because if you're like me, you never felt sick to begin with. I felt fine before I changed my diet and started on medication, and I feel fine now. But I stick with it because I believe those doctors who see heart patients every day and see a link between heart disease and high cholesterol. I know that some people take the point of view that those doctors could be wrong. I just think that's foolish. So I plan to stick with it. Eat well, take my medication, and stay in shape.
Please ask your doctor about the amount of exercise that's right for you. And please remember that medication should only be taken as prescribed, not more, not less. If you have any questions or problems with your medication, please contact your doctor's office.